What up, guys? It's your boy Sports Runs on Diesel here, coming back at you with another video. And today is all about fantasy football. Today I'm just going to be going over just the particulars of fantasy football, PPR, non-PPR, the positions, etc., etc. We're not going to get into exclusive details. This is going to be a real short video. But, I'm excited to kind of drop some fantasy football knowledge on for you guys as we're T-minus inside of 30 days of football season starting here. So, first things up, I use ESPN Fantasy Football. That's the app I use. I always have it on my phone opened. I'm always looking at the rankings, etc., etc. I'm constantly doing that because the rankings change throughout the preseason based on Matthew Berry and other guys from ESPN Analyst World in fantasy football. It always changes. Sometimes it changes every day. Sometimes it changes 2-3 times a day, depending on football, the preseason matchups and stuff like that. If guys get named starters over other guys, etc., etc. But in ESPN Fantasy Football, they have one quarterback position. This is their lineup: one quarterback position, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end. They also have a flex spot where you could put a running back, a wide receiver, or a tight end in that position. Any one of those 3 positions can go in that flex spot. Obviously the defense/special team spot, and then the kicker spot. And then there's 6 bench spots. Biggest thing with the bench, you should have at least 1 backup for each position. 1 backup quarterback, 1 backup running back, 1 backup, wide receiver, tight end, defense, kicker. You should have a backup for each position. That fills up those 6 spots right there. Because what if the starting defense you have has they're not projected to do well because they're up against a high-powered offense, and then your backup defense is up against a bad offense, you get what I'm saying? You guys understand where I'm going at with this. It is the biggest thing in fantasy football is check your matchups, check the projections always, even though sometimes a player has a lower projection than your starter, sometimes that projection is huge because they're up against a bad defense and then they go off for 30 points and you're like, oh, why didn't I do that? There you go. So biggest thing with the bench, have a backup position, have one of each position as a backup, and that fills out your bench, the 6 bench spots. But, coming up, we're going to be talking about quarterbacks. That's going to be the first thing, the do's and don'ts of quarterbacks. Who you should pick as your QB1, who you should have as your backup, who you should keep an eye out on for upside during the regular season, and who you absolutely should not pick, period. That is going to be coming up in a later episode, which I will be dropping very, very soon. PPR versus non-PPR leagues. I prefer PPR leagues, point per reception, if you don't know what that means. PPR leagues add value to the wide receivers and the tight ends in their position. We obviously know running backs are the most valuable position in fantasy football. And I'm going to tell you right now, your first fantasy football pick should be a running back. It should not be a quarterback. That is a waste of That is the waste of a pick, number 1. Number 2, I just don't understand why you would pick a quarterback first. It's just like you have running backs and wide receivers that are so much better and that could get you so much more fantasy points than a quarterback. So go with a running back, period. They catch the ball, especially PPR leagues when it's points per reception, because every time they catch the ball, it's a point. And then there are some wild leagues where there's point per touch or point per rush attempt, where you can add a point for every time they rush the ball. So if they run the ball 25 times, that's 25 points plus the yards how many yards they got it, touchdowns, plus receptions and yards in that. So the running back would be overpowered if they did that point per rush attempt, but it's point per reception, and it's just 1 point per reception plus the yards. And obviously the yards, if it's 14 yards, it's 1.4 points. You guys know the deal with that, etc., etc. Moving on, like I said, go PPR leagues, period, because it's so much easier. And it actually adds more excitement to the game because every time your guy catches the ball, even though it was for 6 yards, and you're down by a point, now you're leading by 0.6 because of that point from the reception, from the catch they received. But like I said, it adds more value to wide receivers and tight ends because they're not valued very well in non-PPR leagues. That's why they made these leagues. So that's what I have for you right now up front here. You know, please choose wisely. Like I said earlier, do not pick a quarterback or a tight end as your number one pick. It should be a running back. Or if you want to go wide receiver, if that's best available, if that's the next best available thing, like if you're the 9th or 10th pick out of a 10-team league, wide receiver is probably going to be your best option. But I still choose the next highest running back, like if it's Gurley or Melvin Gordon or whoever it is. You always want to start off with a running back because they're the most valuable. That's the most valuable position in fantasy football. But I want to thank you guys for your time. Like I said, stay tuned for part 2 of the series. We're going to be talking about quarterbacks, etc., etc., who to look for, who to stay away from. I want to thank you guys for your time. Please subscribe. Please smash the like button and comment. Thank you guys for your time. I'll see you guys on the flip side.